You've been asking in the comments if Scars of Honor is the next MMO home that we can finally settle down in. Today, we're trading the dated graphics of the past month for something a bit more vibrant to see if the soul of an old school MMO can survive in a modern skin. Scars of Honor is a free-to-play MMORPG developed by Beast Burst Entertainment, and their first Steam playtest is scheduled to run April 30th through May 11th. Now, I do not have access to this game. I'll be knocking down the playtest doors with everyone else next month, which means everything I'm about to say is based entirely on what the developers have shown publicly. In other words, my opinions right now are purely superficial, which is perfect because superficial opinions are the backbone of YouTube. But because I have a YouTube channel, I also have an air of completely unearned authority, which is about as superficial as you can get in modern society. So today, we're going to look at two things. First, what the developers are promising, and second, whether those promises actually resemble the kind of MMO we're looking for. At its core, Scars of Honor is trying to resurrect the classic MMORPG formula. We're talking tab target combat, faction conflict, party-focused gameplay, and a world designed around cooperation instead of solo play. The game takes place on the continent of Aragon, where two factions, the Sacred Order and the Domination, are locked in a long-running war. Players choose from multiple races and classes, and progress through a traditional MMO structure of quests, dungeons, and raids. Which already tells you something important. This isn't trying to reinvent the genre, it's trying to rebuild it. And after the last decade of MMOs, maybe the most obvious path is the one worth taking. One of the biggest design pillars the developers talk about is bringing back social MMORPG gameplay, which also sounds obvious until you remember that modern MMOs have probably spent the last 15 years designing systems that let you avoid other players entirely. Scars of Honor is trying to move in the opposite direction. Most activities are designed around group play, and the developers repeatedly emphasize the idea that MMOs should be social experiences first. That's a philosophy that will make some players very happy, and some players immediately uninstall, because the modern MMO audience has been trained to expect solo convenience systems everywhere. So the big question becomes, is this actually old school design or just old school marketing language? Looking at the footage and the dev showcases, a few systems keep popping up. First, procedural dungeons. Instead of static dungeon layouts, Scars of Honor is experimenting with procedural dungeons designed to make each run feel different. In theory, this could help solve that classic MMO problem, running the same dungeon 400 times until you begin to recognize individual floor tiles. Whether it actually works is something we won't know until the players start grinding them, which they will, because MMO players will grind to anything. Another big focus is combat that rewards positioning and decision-making instead of strict ability rotations. It's still tab target at heart, but the developers say that they want combat to feel faster and more reactive than traditional MMOs. That's a tricky balance. Too slow and it feels dated, too fast and suddenly you're playing an action game instead of an MMO. Another thing that the devs keep emphasizing is character identity. Races, factions, and classes are meant to matter, not just cosmetically, but socially and mechanically. Again, these echo the philosophy of older MMOs where your character was part of the world and not just a build template. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. How are they making money? Scars of Honor is planning a free-to-play model with cosmetics, convenience items, and battle passes, while claiming they want to avoid pay-to-win mechanics. Well, that's a dream scenario, but every MMO says this, every single one. So this is something players will be watching carefully once the game actually launches, because the line between convenience and pay-to-win in MMOs is about as thin as a developer apology post. Alright, and then there's the art style. One thing people immediately notice are the graphics. Scars of Honor isn't chasing photorealism. Instead, it leans into that stylized fantasy look with bold colors, exaggerated characters, and bright spell effects. I mean, yeah, it immediately brings to mind World of Warcraft. Blizzard made a famous choice back in 2004. Instead of pushing realism, they built a stylized world. And that decision is a big reason why that game still looks good today. Realistic graphics age quickly. Stylized worlds last. Scars of Honor seems to be following the same philosophy, prioritizing clarity and readability, which is exactly what you want in an MMO where the screen can fill with dozens of players and spell effects. It's also a smart move for a smaller studio. Stylized worlds are easier to build, they run better on more machines, and they let developers focus more on systems and gameplay instead of chasing ultra-realistic visuals. But before we start packing our bags and moving into Aragon, let's talk about reality. There are 3 things we need to remember. First, the game is not yet released. Second, what we're seeing is developer-controlled footage. And third, MMOs are the hardest genre in gaming to finish. So right now, Scars of Honor exists in that magical phase where every MMO looks amazing. The pre-launch promise phase, where systems are ambitious and the ideas are exciting. Every MMO before launch looks like the next big thing. It's after launch that we discover the economy is broken and that wolves drop pants. I will say this, Scars of Honor is at least aiming at something that many MMOs have abandoned. A social, cooperative, old-school MMORPG experience. Whether it actually delivers, I guess we'll find out during the April 30th playtest. And when that happens, I'll be right there with everyone else, running into walls, pulling too many mobs, and dying for the sacred YouTube currency of likes and subscribers. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next world.